Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another edition of Getting to Know Gray 17. I am John, one of the co-hosts of the Gray 17 podcast. And this week we are switching it up a bit. Up until now, I've been introducing and interviewing my fellow newbies, but I thought it was time to give us a shout out to the first ones. So with me today is the real first one. Just I'm going to say it. My boy, Mike. Mike, thanks for coming on. Thanks for doing this, man. Go ahead and introduce yourself. Tell us a little about yourself.
Well, thanks for having me, John. My name is Mike. I am one of the first ones. Let's see. I have been a fan of Babylon 5 since it first aired. I live in Iowa. I've got a wife and a daughter. Yeah, I don't know. It's kind of the basics.
All right. Well, you kind of got into one of the questions I usually have, but so how'd you hear about the Gray 17 podcast?
Yeah. This will kind of dip into one of the other questions too, but Scott asked me. He invited me to join in. I've done some other pods on the Front Row Network with Scott and Blake in the past. So when they were doing this, I was kind of excited. Actually, he didn't ask me. He told me he was doing it, and I was kind of like, "Hey, man, like I'd be into that." So
yeah. Well, that's cool. So yeah, so what made you want to be a part of it? The previous work you guys had done together, or just because you love Babylon 5? Like
a little of both. I've always enjoyed doing the other pods with the guys. Trying to think. Previously, we had done Discovering Star Trek, about the Star Trek Discovery series, which we did like seasons 1 and part of season 2, I think, and then it kind of petered out. And I've done a few other like random one-offs, like he went to me for the animated Transformers the movie, and I want to say, what's the Monster Squad was another one. I think there have been others. I just can't remember them, but it was always a good time. So
basically, you're a podcast pro, and this is just old hat.
Yeah, it's something like that.
Well, so usually I ask, I'd ask in the newbies how they heard of Babylon 5, or how had they heard of it before. Obviously, you've watched the show, but so did you come into it? You said right when it aired, like, did you just stumble upon it? Did somebody tip you off? So like, how'd you find it?
No, I pretty much stumbled upon it. Growing up, I was always big into sci-fi. I used to watch, back in the day, it was the Sci-Fi Channel, and they'd air like Mystery Science Theater. I'm a huge MST fan. Nice. And Next Generation, Deep Space Nine, and yeah, I think I just kind of stumbled into, like, there was, I can think of so many other shows at that time, but yeah, I just kind of stumbled into B5, and it was cool. So
you saw it was on PTEN, right?
That's what Scott has said. I remember being on I want to say like the UPN network, which I think might be the same thing with different letters.
Yeah, because that's something that's always not necessarily bothered me, but they keep talking about it. I was like, I have never heard of this channel before. Like I grew up, we didn't have cable. So I was like, oh, maybe it was a cable thing, but we had, UPN, you had the 2, 4, 5, 9, 11, 30, like you had those channels, but I had never heard of it before.
So I'm here in the Quad Cities, in the kind of on the Iowa-Illinois border. And the way I remember it is like we have WGN, right? Yep. And I don't know who else has WGN, or like how far that spreads, but I want to say WGN, the Chicago television network. Sometimes it was WGN, sometimes it was like Al Jazeera, sometimes I want to say it was UPN. So
okay, that's cool. So I also asked people how they know the host. Now, obviously it sounds like, and we had Emily on and she's already told us a little bit about you and Scott, but why don't you walk us through how you knew all the hosts?
Yeah, she already spilled the tea on that one. Well, honestly, so I moved around a lot as a kid. I'm a John Deere brat. My dad worked for Deere basically his whole career, and we bounced from place to place, but the Quad Cities has always been my home base. So like I was born here in Silvis, Illinois, and then we moved away and came back, moved away and came back. So I came back to the Quad Cities area starting high school, so as a freshman, and Scott was like the second or third person that I met in high school, like freshly back in town, and so we've been friends ever since then. So that's obviously how I know him. And then I met Emily in high school as well, because she went to the same school and was in my class in high school. I want to say pretty much everyone else, I mean, I kind of met through the podcast. I mentioned Blake, and I think I've met Kevin maybe once or twice because of prior Front Row podcasts as well. But yeah, everyone else I kind of just met. So
yeah. Okay, so I don't know if you mentioned your dad works for Deere, but what do you do? for work?
I'm a software developer, or software engineer now, I guess is my title technically, but I've been at that for 15 years, something like that.
Oh,
I went to Western Illinois, got a computer science degree, stayed through my master's, and then got hired to a local business here doing software dev. So I do like CAD stuff. I write CAD software.
I got you. See, this is why I said you're the real first one, because I've said this on the pod. And I know you took offense, rightfully so. We're basically the same person. I'm also a software engineer. I also went to Western Illinois University.
And I've wanted to talk to you about that because I have heard that. But again, like I just met you through the podcast. And so we basically don't shoot the shit very often. But
yeah, I guess we'll get to it in my little episode, but I work for JP Morgan. I do software engineering.
Nice.
But I haven't been doing it for 15 years. I've only been doing it for a little over about 5. So I'm still relatively new.
Gotcha. Yeah. I said I started off working at a startup more or less here in Davenport. And then the startup got bought out by a company down south. I don't know if I should mention names or not. So I'm just going to be vague and say I got bought out by Evil Core somewhere else. And I've been bouncing around. I haven't had a lot of different jobs. Like I worked at one place basically from college for like 13 years, and then COVID hit and everything got shook up. Right now I am working for a prominent home shopping network.
Nice. Yeah, I will say that's one of the more interesting things about kind of that field is it's not uncommon to really bounce around. Like at least my mom, that generation growing up, it was like, you shot for the gold watch. Like you said, your dad, right? He's a deer man. And like now it's like year 2, 3, now I wonder if people look at you across, you're like, you've been there how long?
I know. Well, and in our industry, that's kind of true, right? Because it seems like when you go work in software dev, you kind of like get pigeonholed into something unless you like forcibly push your way out of the box that they try to put you in naturally. And then eventually you're like the guy doing the archaic thing that all the kids out of college didn't even bother to learn.
So you went to Western, did you take COBOL as a language?
No, nope.
Oh, so I did. And literally they were like, well, listen, we only teach this because there's a handful of companies that still use it. And it's such an outdated language that not a lot of people know it. So if you take this class, you'll at least have it on your resume and you can get a job. Yep. And I swear to you, I put it on my resume. So many companies reached out and were like, hey, do you have COBOL experience? And I was like, yeah, I took a class. So.
Yeah, it was crazy. I somehow I skipped over that one. What did you do? Like there were 2 different tracks in Western computer science. It was like the mathematics track and then the business track or something like that. And I did the math track.
I went more, I think, on the business track. Now, obviously there was a ton of math, which I'm like good at math and like math. And even I was like, dude, this is like discrete math. I was like, no, thanks. This is
I went hard through all of that. I went through like Calc 3 and everything. So it was brutal. But what's funny is I kind of paid off because doing CAD software, obviously I do a lot of math, right? But I also missed out on a lot of like COBOL. That just wasn't part of it, but it would have actually been probably a pretty useful skill. The thing, the devil for me has been Visual Basic 6. That's the thing. I didn't take any classes on it, but right out of college, that first job, they were like, you're going to learn some VB6, and I hate it. And every job that I've had since, they're like, oh, VB6, and now I just don't talk about it. I don't put it on my resume. Right. I don't tell anybody because I don't want to do it.
Yeah, I did something. So I took COBOL off my resume because I was like, no, I don't want to do it. I did a little Visual Basic stuff, but I don't put that on there. Now that, again, I've been doing it for a few years, when I was just coming out, I'm like, I would put everything. If I even sniffed this class, I was like, I can do that. And now I'm like, no. There's stuff like that.
It's the LinkedIn principle, right? And then you get somebody that has no idea to endorse you on it.
It's funny. I lived in Davenport. That was my first job out of college with computer science. I did consulting work for a company that did SAP software. And I had, even in the interview, I was like, I've never done anything with this. I have no idea. They're like, we'll teach you. I'm like, all right, cool. So now I have that. And that was on my resume because it was the job. I had to put it when I was looking for other work. And to this day, still now, I get more job offers for SAP work than anything else. They're just like, oh, here's an SAP development. Here's a remote job. Here's this, here's that. Here's a contract here. I'm just like, I don't really want to do this. I also did it for a year, so I'm not even good.
I know. It's a good industry to be in because, like, if you do know that skill, whether you want to do it or not, you've got options always.
Yeah, that's true. All right. Well, enough about work because work is work. But what do you do when you're not working? What kind of hobbies do you like to sling?
I'm a gamer, a PC gamer largely. I probably waste way more hours than I'm even aware of doing gaming. Yeah, typically like I've got kind of a group of buddies who, well, back to the work thing. We used to play games over work. Being a small software shop, we could do that.
Yeah.
And so even to this day, like we'll hop in the Discord server from noon to 1 and play something, usually some kind of Call of Duty or Rocket League or something.
Okay. Yeah, I
And
was
I
gonna
love
say, what's
single
your
players, but I don't play them very often anymore. So I
yeah?
just don't have time.
So I'm surprised. Well, maybe not because where this question is going to go. But since you like games so much, you're in software engineering. Did you ever try or have any desire to get into game design or game, anything with the gaming industry?
I'd say the desire was there. I'd say like I had teachers, like professors in college, who kind of like beat the optimism out of me, for lack of a better term. Like it seems like if you go into computer science, like I don't know, man, every third person you talk to was like, oh yeah, I'm gonna go out and make the next big game, and then like, no, they're not. Like
Yeah.
it's game dev is super super hard, and um, I'll say like outside of work, I've gotten with some other dev buddies, and like we've tried to make something here and there, and never gotten very far with it.
Yeah.
I've got big dreams, right? But it's never happened. The closest I'm talking about getting, actually, I'm doing it again. Um, there's God, what do they call it? There's like you've heard of like game jams, where
Mhm.
you sit down with a team that you put together for like a weekend and you just try to crank something out either by yourself or with a group. And
Yeah.
so I've got a buddy who's been trying to get me into that because he actually does have a game that he made and published on Steam, and you can go play it.
Oh,
Um,
nice.
and so I feel like he can kind of guide me through it. So I'm like, yeah,
You want to plug
maybe.
it? You can plug it if you want.
I think Lacuna Passage, I think it is.
All right.
So get it, Tyler. Um, yeah, so I'm thinking about maybe trying to do a game jam again. I think that'd be super fun. But
Yeah, there was a guy that you get closer because you do a lot of group projects, or at least I did. Come with computer science, and the guy I worked with that I liked and that working with, he had been doing a game, and he was like, "Hey, do you mind testing this?" Now I thought he, like me, was like just learning it. Oh, this is beginner stuff. This dude had been coding since he was like 8, and he was like, "Oh, here's my game," and he showed it to me. And he
yeah,
was like, "It's just a demo. Don't worry about it." It was one of the best games I've ever seen.
dang,
I was like,
yeah,
what is this? And I don't even know if he still put it out. Like it's so to your point about people in video games, like you really have to have a passion for it because it's really, really, really intense. It takes a ton. And the people who, get on, because I was telling people the same thing, because everyone, when I'd say, oh, I'm getting computer science, they'd be like, oh, you like video games? You want to work in video games? And I was like, no, man. I go, people want to get into video games mostly because they're like, oh, I have the idea. So I'm going to create it, run it, and be the driving force. But you're going to get hired by EA. You're like, oh, I work on Madden. Be like, what do you do? I render the grass. Be like, oh, cool. And
yeah,
that's not thrilling. So
totally. Yeah, you're gonna get stuck into some really terrible little corner of boring stuff,
and then the opposite
yeah.
of that is you have to do it yourself, which takes a ton
Oh
of
my god.
effort, money, and it's a lot.
Yeah, I mean, I took the like computer graphics class because there was only one that was offered
Right.
at Western, and it was like one of the big ones and easily the hardest one, and it was because I spent so much time on it, really myself, because I was into it. But
Mhm.
like, yeah, I slaved away for like a month and like finished coding it at like 5:59 the morning before it was due, and like trucked across campus, and it was pathetic. Like,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah. It's fun, it's rewarding, but it's so frustrating most of the time,
Mhm.
especially I'm sure maybe we'll move on. I don't know how many people really love hearing coding talk, but you just get that you're like, I can't figure it out. And I was like, oh, you got an extra space there. And you're like, what? And you're like, oh, now it works. Oh, okay, cool. I can't believe they pay me all that money to miss a period. So
Yeah, for sure.
fantastic.
Yeah. And if those were the easier problems that you encounter, I mean, shit, the
Yeah,
compiler tells you when you miss a
sure.
semicolon somewhere. But
All right. So if you're not working, you're not software deving it, you're not gaming it up. But if you could switch lives with any one person, could be past, present, anybody,
man,
for one day, just one day. You don't get their life, but for one day, you get to be this person. Who you picking?
oh, man, like, do I get their skill set
You get all of
or?
it. You get to be. So we'll just say it's basically your mind in their body. So you know you and
Okay,
what you have,
okay,
but you'll get their skills. We'll say Matrix. So if you decide, well, I want to be LeBron, obviously we'll play basketball like LeBron. You're not going to play basketball like Mike, but you get to be that person for the day.
yeah, I don't know, man. I'm not big into sports ball, but I'd like a race car driver or something. I can't really think. I'm gonna throw out like Rick Mears. There you go. That's
All right.
I used to. Uh, I'll save that. I can't spill the tea on that one yet because I'm gonna save it for later. So never mind.
Oh,
Yeah.
all right. All right. Um, it's funny you pick like the race car driver. So previously, I always expect people to pick somebody who's like a billionaire. Like, I don't know, what's Jeff Bezos' life like for a day? Like, that's insane. But so far, everyone's picked, like Emily picked somebody, I think she picked somebody from The Who, and Nicole was, or no, maybe she picked, or I think Nicole picked Adam Sandler. Like, it's been very interesting to hear people. It's not been what I've expected at all. And so I'm happy that my friends have diversity.
Yeah. I feel like this question, I don't know if this question was on the cheat sheet you sent me, but like, I guess I immediately went to like, what's an experience that I won't have with anybody else? And so like, I threw out race car driver because that'd be super dope. I immediately want to change my answer to like some astronaut. I wanted to be Neil Armstrong going to the moon.
Yeah,
like that'd be awesome
for one day. I think that's something close. I would pick too, right? To be able to be in space. I mean, that's
the dream, right?
Yeah, for sure. Are you a reader?
No, I'm not. I'm trying to read the Wheel of Time series right now because it's my wife's favorite book series of all time, and this is my second attempt. I made it through book 5 the first time, and I'm almost through book 2 now. But I want to tell you, it's been like a shamefully long time that it's taken me to get this far. Like, yeah.
All right. Well, instead of asking what kind of book you would write, then, because you said video games, okay, what kind of video game would you create? If you had unlimited time and resources, what type of video game would you create?
I'll go ahead and answer both parts of that because I actually have an answer for the book part too. But a video game, I would want to do like a space flight sim. Like, I have super fun memories of like the X-Wing and TIE Fighter games, or Final Space, I think was the name of it. It was like by Volition. Man, those games are so cool. That's the kind of game I have always wanted to make, and I don't feel like there are any good ones out there.
Have you, real quick, have you played No Man's Sky?
I haven't. It's boring as hell.
Really? You didn't? So let me say, game aside, when I first time I played it, that you didn't feel that rush of experience, like when you get into the ship for the first time and you take off, you leave the atmosphere, you go into space, that's my favorite part of that game. The rest of it, to be honest, I really don't care about. But that every time flying and going in and out of systems and spaces it still gets me.
It is very cool. When I got it on almost day one and started playing it, which obviously that game has a rep where it was in super rough shape when it launched, and they way overpromised and underdelivered. But like that aspect of getting into a ship and it's like look up at the sky, point at any star or thing you see, and you can just go there. And that was super badass.
Yeah.
But I have a really low tolerance for games that are like grindy.
Mm-hmm.
And so it very quickly was like, oh, well, now you're out of gas. So you're going to have to go mine rock for like the next 4 hours before you can fly to the next thing in the sky. And I did that enough times that I was like, all right, it's cool that I can fly to the different things, but they're all the same.
Yeah.
And I've gone back and tried it a few times, like since they've been releasing updates, and it's cool that they've pushed a lot of content into it. I'm just still not into it. I have a short attention span for that.
All right. Well, what's your book idea? You said you got one.
Yeah. I want to for no particular reason write a fantasy like Dungeons and Dragons swords and forest style book called The Sword of Explosions.
Already I'm in. I'm hooked.
There you go. The basic premise is it's about this like rogue that gets a wizard drunk, and they make the most absurdly powerful and dangerous weapon known to man called the Sword of Explosions, and it's just misadventures from there on out.
I kind of hope you hurry up and write that book because I really want to read it.
I think it's got Hollywood written all over it if I could just find a time machine.
Well, I love it. And speaking of Hollywood, if we're shooting the Mike biopic, what actor do you want or do you think would play you?
Lawrence Fishburne for sure.
Oh yeah. Now you want Lawrence Fishburne? And which Lawrence Fishburne are you getting? Are you getting Matrix Lawrence Fishburne or Old School Boys in the Hood Lawrence Fishburne?
Ooh, probably Matrix Lawrence Fishburne. I just think he's a great actor. He's one of my favorites for sure. No, I have no serious answer to give you on this. I have no idea.
Hey, that works. Listen, Lawrence Fishburne is great, and we'll go Hamilton casting rules. That's fine. I'm not worried about it.
Hollywood's race and gender flipping everybody anyway, so why not?
I'm down. I'm down.
I'd be way cooler than in real life by far. So,
all right. Since this is an interview and I've asked you lots of questions, what is one question though you wish people would ask you more?
One question they would like to ask, and I don't really have any because I'm pretty introverted. I don't really like when people talk to me.
This was great then. Thank you, Mike.
Yeah. I can't think of anything for that really. Would you like this pile of free money? Yes, I would.
Oh, see, here's the thing. Usually I use that as a prompt to then ask the person what they want to be asked. However, I don't have a big pile of money, so I'm not going to ask if you want it, but I will flip the opposite of that I like to ask too. So because you said you're an introvert too, I assume you have answers for this one. What question do you wish people would ask you less?
Again, I really don't. I just don't want anybody to talk to me, period. Like,
so any question.
Yeah, just leave me alone, man.
I'm surprised, since you're also in CS, that it's not, oh, can you fix and then insert any tech thing ever in there? Because
you just opened a floodgate now. That's like, oh, grandma got a new cell phone and needs help. Like, yeah, that's true. I don't like being asked like to be tech support guy for anybody. I'm over it, because I don't know if you're this way too, but being a developer now, like, anything at all to do with like troubleshooting or hardware, like, I have zero patience for it now. I don't even want to build my own computers anymore. Like,
yeah,
I just don't want to mess with it. I just want stuff to work all the time.
it's I used to be that person anyways. I was always kind of a techie person. I always liked gadgets and stuff. And so my family is just not that way at all. So they would always be like, oh, they'd be like, computers. And I'd be like, my VCR doesn't work. I'd be like, yeah, that's the same thing. Why don't I just take a look at it? And then when I went and got my CS degree, now everybody's like, oh, this. And I'm like, your phone's not working. You probably should go to Verizon. I'm not. What I mean? It's software. Like, I didn't write that software. Like, that's not what I do. I'm not, Geek Squad. So that's why I was shocked that wasn't the first thing that came to your mind, because on the one hand, I like to try to be helpful, especially with family, friends. Like, I'll try, but it is really something when they continually ask you.
I think it was like, you go through a phase of your life where you're like the techie guy and you like to be helpful and whatever. And like, I worked in retail at Best Buy and I sold computers and stuff. And I wanted to be like Mr. Has the Answers all the time. It gave me a great pleasure to do that for a long time. But you just reach a point of being exhausted by it. And like you said, it gets harder and harder and harder. And eventually you're just like, I just don't want to deal with it anymore. Like, go ask the guy at the store.
I was on vacation this last week. We were at a dinner, and this woman, everyone was talking and like, oh, what do you do? What do you do? I was like, oh, I'm a software engineer. She immediately pulled out her phone and was like, oh, can you help me? And I spent 45 minutes talking about, she lost her iPhone. And the gist was like, she was worried that the people were going to be able to take her stuff. And I had to talk to her for 45. Her husband, the only reason I really did it, because he looked at me and he was like, thank you. Thank you. She couldn't sleep last night. She was driving me insane with all these questions. You've given her peace of mind. I was like, all right, well, I suppose it would be nice to get back to dinner, but okay. Mike, you got any pets?
I got a dog. Yep, kind of Jack Russell Terrier. She's like 13 or 14 now.
Oh, nice. Oh, 13 or 14. Have you had her the entire time?
Yep. We got her as a puppy. So
perfect. If she could talk, what do you think she would say about you?
That I have no impulse control when it comes to sweets, and that I drink way too much coffee.
All right. Listen, again, the same person. With the former, I'm down. Sweets are my jam. I've not met something with sugar in it that I haven't enjoyed. Coffee, not so much, because I don't like hot drinks, but when I do drink coffee, it's basically the dessert, because I just get the cold, whatever.
That's me all the time. I don't ever get anything hot unless it's like -20 out. And yeah, so I don't think she'd complain, because I usually, like, since I work from home, I load her up in the car and she gets like the little pup cup, and she gets way too excited about it, because anytime I go towards the garage door, she's like, yeah, we're gonna get coffee. Like,
nice.
Like, it's a lot.
Yeah, I stopped getting them because, again, I would get the sugariest thing on the menu. I don't have like a panic attack after homos, because I've just gone into a sugar coma and just taste the diabetes. But
yeah, there's all those memes are like, oh, how come your stomach hurts so bad? It's like, because I had breakfast. You had like an iced coffee most of your breakfast, like every day.
Just jittery. All right, let's swing it back to Grey 17. Give me a favorite memory of Grey 17 so far.
Oh, man. Buttholes.
Nice.
Take it all the way back.
That was what was that? Mindhunter, right? That was
like episode 2.
Oh yeah, it's probably earlier than that.
It was real early. Yeah. Honestly, that really is kind of one of my favorites, because like it's been a lot of fun to like have you newbies on, especially those of you that like haven't been into sci-fi very much.
Yeah.
And just like I don't know. There are things that I'm like, okay, they'll probably think that's like cool or whatever. And then there are things that like the Mind Hunter or Soul Hunter.
So yeah.
Where I'm like, oh boy, they're gonna struggle with this one.
Well, who doesn't like guy with a butthole for his forehead? I mean, that's insanity.
And yeah, we had fun recording that for sure.
All right. Well, what are you looking forward to the most? We've got another 2.5 actual years, 3 seasons, 3.5 seasons. What are you looking forward to the most?
And I don't know. Just seeing where this this crazy thing goes. Like I kind of joined the podcast with, I think probably you would agree with me, like almost no expectations about what it was going to be and where it would go. And so having no expectations, it's exceeded that, and then like it's exceeded that plus. Like this has been wild, and I'm pretty pumped about the idea of us maybe getting to go hang out at a Comic-Con and like have our booth. And like I think it'd be pretty cool if some of the awesome people that we've met online come and visit us. So
yeah, that has been I think we've said it, almost everyone I think has said the same thing, and it just bears repeating that. Like literally I just thought I'd be hanging out with a bunch of people, I was already friends with, and shooting a shit about a show I've never seen. And then every time it gets more, it's like, wait, we have a Facebook group. Wait, people have joined it. Wait, people are leaving comments. Wait, people are liking stuff. People are making memes about shit we say. People, like, every time it gets crazier and crazier. And we get to interview people from the show. Like, what is happening?
Yeah, it's insane. And then for the first time we crossed the milestone of like somebody left like a touching story about how like our podcast impacted them in a personal way. And I'm like,
yeah,
buttholes. Like we talk about buttholes.
Yeah, I agree. It's insane. It's insane, and it keeps getting better. And it's the people who like listen to this now and like and comment, subscribe below. It's crazy. But to your point, I'm also excited. Hopefully, we get to do a con. That would be fun to actually meet people in real life. Something so to let everyone else know too, because we are scattered. Like to meet you in person, to meet other people in person. Like there's a lot of us we haven't seen, like you and Emily and Andrew, that I did not know before the podcast. We've never met like in real life.
Yeah. So
just being able to do that would be fun.
And I'm looking forward to that barbecue you keep inviting everybody to. So hopefully we can make it work.
It will be awesome. All right. So we like to wrap up every episode with 2 truths and a lie. So I will remind everyone, Mike is going to give us 2 truths and a lie, not necessarily in that order. And then below, leave your comments guessing what the lie is. And then the week before we release the next episode, he'll tell us what the lie is. So Mike, give me 2 truths and a lie.
Okay. Well, one of my I can't tell you. I was going to say one of my truths is this. Let's see. I have attended probably 7 or 8 Indianapolis 500s over the years. I play guitar and violin, and I have been to Australia and New Zealand, and I'm going back soon, and would love to retire there someday.
Okay, so 2 truths and a lie. Mike has been to 7 or 8 Indy 500s. He plays the guitar and the violin, and he's been to Australia and New Zealand and is going back soon and would like to retire there. So one of those is not true. Let us know below which one you think it is. And like I said, in a week or so, we'll let you know. All right, Mike. So this has been fantastic. It's been fun. Yeah, thanks, we usually give you the last word. Anything you want to say? Any last thoughts or anything?
Love and peace.
Love and peace. Fantastic. All right. Well, thanks again for doing this. We appreciate you. Thanks you for everyone for watching and listening. And like we said, we are part of the Great 17 podcast and podcast network. You can get all of the socials below. You can get all the links to the other shows below. Please consider giving us a like, a subscribe, a listen, a comment, all that good jazz. We love to hear from you. And hopefully we'll see you soon. Mike, thanks again. I have been John, and with me has been
Mike.
And we will see you next time. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.